Hey gang, emergency Notcast time. Actually, I'm going to break the tradition. I'm going to do a reaction video. I normally say I absolutely hate reaction videos, but the reason that I hate reaction videos is simply because just sitting there and going, oh my god, oh wow, look at the way he's playing guitar, is not interesting. However, we have had an amazingly exciting 24 hours in terms of the news recently. If you are unaware of events in the United Kingdom, the allegedly Great Britain in which I live, our Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has announced his resignation as leader of the Conservative Party. As those of you who can tell from my t-shirt, I am not a fan of the Conservative Party. So I'm going to go and watch Boris Johnson's resignation video, and I'm going to react to it and comment on it for a bit. Here we go, everyone. So let's see a little bit more of what's going to happen next. Just remember, if you vote for a clown, you get a circus. And the past 3 years have been a circus. Here we go. Resignation speech time.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good
Well,
afternoon.
It's going to be a good afternoon, yeah.
Thank you.
You can hear this, right?
It is clearly now the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that there should be...
And the people, mate. Don't forget the people. Only, I think, 14 million people actually voted for you. There are approximately 59 million people of voting age in the United Kingdom, which means that about 45 million people didn't vote for you. But no, don't carry on. It's just the will of the party that matters, not the people.
...be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister.
So what he's not saying I'm resigning from being Prime Minister, he's saying I'm resigning from being leader of the Conservative Party, which of course has the subsequent effect of being no longer the Prime Minister.
And I've agreed with Sir Graham.
Let's not listen too much about what you've agreed with Sir Graham just yet. So there we have Boris slipping out that he's going to be resigning as Prime Minister. Let us not forget, all political careers end in failure. Some failures are bigger than others.
And Brady, the chairman of our backbench MPs, that the process of choosing that new leader should begin now. And the timetable will be announced next week. And I've today appointed a cabinet to serve.
A cabinet. By the way, I can neither confirm nor deny that I've turned down 34 offers of ministerial positions in the past 24 hours. For those of you who may or may not have been following British politics, we have seen a catastrophically exciting series of events starting about 6 p.m. on Tuesday. It's now about 1:30 on Thursday. I forget after the first few thousand days what day is which. Rishi Sunak and Sajid Javid resigned, then followed by approximately 45 resignations of ministers and secretaries to various departments. Now, there are about 150 people in government that have those posts. When you have a third of people resign literally overnight, you have a situation where you cannot govern. It's kind of like, I was reading an interview with, I think, Nuno Betancourt of Extreme. Don't worry, this will make sense. Who said he was offered the role of guitarist in Guns N' Roses, and he said that was, the only job I've ever turned down because it felt like a cursed job. Is that literally everybody would get offered that job? I don't understand if that's true, but somehow I do get the feeling that even though Boris Johnson has appointed a cabinet, and by the way, a couple of people resigned from the cabinet within 24 hours or 36 hours of being appointed, we had 45 or so resignations, which is the largest time previously in parliamentary history that you had a number of resignations was 6 in a day. We've had 45. I know Boris likes to be world-beating, but I don't think he wants to be world-beating in this way, because effectively what we do is we have a sinking ship here, leaving the rat behind. But let's carry on with it and listen to what he's got to say, because I'm pretty surprised he's got a cabinet in place. Certainly. I don't think, I'm pretty surprised. Eventually, we'll end up with, it reminds me of when you have a band and a load of guys leave and the band still carry on, and you're watching like a band like the Eagles or something, and there's like, Bobs and Dugnut on bass and other guys you've never heard of that effectively become a karaoke band, and you end up paying £10 to see, Johnny Smith's Clarence Creedwater revival at the Oklahoma County Fair or something, and it costs you $6.50, and you're kind of going, who are these guys? Nobody's ever heard of them. They never play on any of the records. That is pretty much what Boris's cabinet is now. It's a bunch of stunt guys that kind of, if you squint, look like people that could have been ministers. But it was like a horror movie. People were leaving very, very quickly. People were arriving and just disappearing. And then it was just basically a succession of people disappearing that you had no idea who they were or what they were doing or anything. And they're like, the weird thing is about being a minister is that you can be like the minister of rabbits. And then all of a sudden you can get promoted to being god of the economy because the god of the economy is resigned. And it's like, well, you're in charge. How difficult is it going to be to shift from being, minister of rabbits to god of the economy? There you go. So these people aren't subject matter experts. They're just ambitious and want to be in charge. And I think that those aren't transferable skills. Anyway, back to the clown fall. I'm watching World King Boris be deposed by himself.
As I will until a new leader is in place. So I want to say to the millions of people who voted for us in...
What about the millions that didn't, mate?
2019, many of them voting Conservative for the first time.
And the last.
Thank you for that incredible mandate, the biggest Conservative majority since 1987.
That's not that long ago, fella.
The biggest share of the vote since 1979.
That's not that long ago either, remember?
And the reason I have fought so hard in the last few days to continue
is because you want to carry on being Prime Minister until at least 2030. Now, it's ambitious that you want to be Prime Minister until at least 8:30 this evening, but I don't think you made it that far.
To deliver that mandate in person.
You didn't get given a mandate. That's the thing with a democracy. A democracy is the largest minority choosing the leader. The first past the post system in democracy is fundamentally very, very flawed. In the end, what you end up with is that the largest single minority gets to choose for everybody else what happens. I believe in proportional representation and not the first past the post system.
Was not just because I wanted to do so, but because I felt it was my job.
To screw the country up? You succeeded.
My duty.
Your duty is to operate in the best wishes of the British people. Now, when you are a Prime Minister, your duty is to make decisions on behalf of the nation for the British people and to operate in their best interests. Boris has never acted in anybody's interests apart from his own. The only nation he believes in is the People's Republic of Boris Johnson and not Great Britain. He said when he was much, much younger that he wanted to be world king as opposed to anything else. He wants people to salute him for his power, and he wants to be powerful. He doesn't want or went into politics to be successful at changing the world and making the world a better place. This is a fundamental problem that I have with Boris Johnson. I've worked with people like Boris. They last about 9 months in any job, and then they get fired. They get given an NDA and a load of money to quietly go away and never say anything negative about the company, and the company will promise never to say anything about them. I've seen sales guys build tools that don't work, that are designed to fill one specific purpose, to fool the client that they have a certain degree of functionality. But it's actually, instead of it being an interactive bit of software that actually works, it's a demonstration where you pretend, oh, I'm going to press left, but it's automatically been designed to go left. I saw salespeople do that in a company I won't name. These are the kind of people that lie for a living, and they never think any further than the end of their own nose. Well, Boris thinks with a little head as well, as we know.
My obligation to you to continue to do what we promised in 2019.
Getting on with the job. That's not a surprise, is it? Although, actually, given the rumours that have come out of number 10, maybe the phrase should be getting on with the blowjob.
And of course, I'm immensely proud of the achievements of this government, from getting Brexit done to settling our relations.
Getting Brexit done, ticker. Yeah, you didn't get Brexit done, mate. You forced through a bunch of legislation that you voted against very, very recently, just before it went in. But because it's got Boris on the front and not Theresa May, you decided to get it through. And obviously, of course, now breaking the law in specific and limited ways, which is absolutely disastrous for Britain's reputation. I should talk about, obviously, having Boris in power as leader of the United Kingdom, or the ununited kingdom as the way it might be at the moment, is that if you break the law in specific and limited ways, effectively the message that you're passing out to every single one of your international trading partners is that I'm fundamentally untrustworthy. I will agree with you, and then I will go back on my agreement. And so therefore people have found Britain, from a political perspective, over the past 3 to 5 years, fundamentally being untrustworthy. We cannot trust the United Kingdom to honour its promises and its obligations. It will go back and change them as soon as it feels like it. Basically, Boris Johnson has daft the EU. He's taken the EU to one side and say it would be unfortunate if I had to leave a garrison here. I'm altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further. well, as we know, all political careers end in failure, and not everyone has a deathbed redemption, Boris.
Relations with the continent for over half a century, reclaiming the power for this country to make its own laws.
Britain could always make its own laws, you absolute ass clown. The only problem that you had with the EU setting laws is that you wanted to roll back human rights, and you said, "Oh, bendy bananas." The UK could always make laws in its own way, and the UK had the best deal with the most vetoes and options out of any of the members of the European Union, and the UK also kept the pound. So saying that the UK was forced to follow EU laws is absolute nonsense. You know, the only place that this was a problem is when there was a contradiction between you wanting to roll back laws and you wanted to roll back rights as well, so you could have a little bit more power. Let's not forget, we don't want to get what's the word I'm thinking of here? A conflation between the European Court of Human Rights and EU laws. The two are very, very different. We're still subject to the European Court of Human Rights from those pesky activist lawyers. And by the way, there is no such thing as activist lawyers. There are just lawyers that follow the law. And when the government itself has a lackadaisical approach to following the law and doesn't follow the rules, let's not forget, those aren't rules, they're orders. We follow their orders. And they don't follow the orders because their orders are for little people. And the rules are different, as we saw from Partygate, as we saw from the procurement legislation and regulation, which was repeatedly broken by Boris Johnson and the COVID situation, as we saw from multiple other instances. And let's not also forget that the House of Commons and the House of Lords doesn't have a standard HR-style department, which means that when we had the sexual assault allegations, which came out very, very recently, in most normal working environments, were an employee accused of those, and it was proven to have been the case, which I think it was the case, that person would have their employment terminated. Instead, we're relying on the good chap theory of politics in the UK, which is that good chaps run the place, and they will know when to fall on their swords and when to resign. Boris is shameless. You cannot shame a man who is shameless. He's just going, no, I'm going to ride it out. What are you going to do? What they were going to do, by the way, is there was going to be an election of new members of the 1922 Committee of the Conservative Party next week. That's the week commencing around about the 11th, 12th of July. And they were going to change the laws so that Boris Johnson could face a vote of no confidence again, which in this case he would absolutely lose. Also, Keir Starmer, leader of the Labour Party, said that they were going to put a vote of no confidence to the House of Commons, which inevitably Boris would probably lose, which therefore means he has decided to jump before he is pushed. His position is simply no longer tenable.
In Parliament, getting us all through the pandemic.
Which you didn't, because more people died in the UK than in any other country in Europe, because you decided to say, let the bodies pile high in their thousands.
Delivering the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe.
Which wasn't because we'd left Europe, but because we were a member of Europe.
The fastest exit from lockdown.
Which just meant that we had the highest number of deaths.
And in the last few months, leading the West in standing up to Putin's aggression in Ukraine.
Okay, so how does this reconcile with you giving your security people the slip in 2018 and hanging out with a KGB agent that you've now then promoted into the House of Lords? Let's see what you've got to say about that.
And let me say now to the people of Ukraine that I know that we in the UK will continue to back your fight for freedom for as long as it takes.
So you can imagine Jacob going, quick, Boris, get Zelensky on the phone because you've screwed up again and we need to distract people. It's the dead cat theory of politics. Boris has a dead cat theory, which is that you throw the dead cat into the room, it distracts everyone from what's really happening, and then you move the subject onto something else. And by the time when it's happening, you go, oh, now is not the time to look into it. After the time it's happened, you then go, oh, no, it's too late. Everything's happened. Lessons have been learned. Mistakes have been made. Yada, yada, yada. Let's focus on what's going on now. Typical Tory deflection position. I think Boris Johnson is a psychopath. If you look at the personality traits that we have inside psychopathic behaviour, you know, it's superficial charm, a lack of long-lasting relationships, a veneer of wit, a casual approach to other people and seeing other people as objects to be manipulated, controlled and disposed of when they no longer serve your purposes. This is an armchair diagnosis. I think Boris Johnson is undoubtedly a psychopath. He's definitely the worst Prime Minister that Britain has ever had. He is going to make Nixon look like Rupert the Bear.
And at the same time, in this country, we've been pushing forward a vast programme of investment in infrastructure and skills and technology, the biggest.
Ding! I'm going to tick the bullshit button here. Because actually, if you look at the amount of investment that's taken place in the UK compared to the investment that we've had for comparative countries inside the EU, what we will see is investment has transferred out of the UK to countries like Germany. We have major economic markets that are moving to places like Brussels, Berlin, Hamburg, Paris, because they are members of the EU and they have smoother, easier, frictionless trading relationships with other countries. But let's not let the facts get in the way of anything.
In a century, because if I have one insight into human beings,
it's that you like to have sex with them and then run away.
It is the genius and talent and enthusiasm and imagination are evenly distributed throughout the population.
Not just the rich and not just the people from Eton, mate. So maybe you might want to have a Prime Minister that doesn't come from Eton and doesn't come from a private school and isn't a millionaire. Just a hint. But, you know, you've never listened to anybody else unless they wanted to take you to bed.
But opportunity is not. And that's why we must keep levelling up, keep unleashing the potential of every part.
Mate, I'd like to unleash the potential of the judiciary upon you.
Of the United Kingdom. And if we can do that in this country, we will be the most prosperous in Europe.
But we're not in Europe anymore. Make up your mind. Either you're in or you're out. Which one are you going to be? It's like Schrodinger's country. Is it in Europe or is it not in Europe? Make up your mind and stick to it.
And in the last few days, I've tried to persuade my colleagues that it would be eccentric to change governments.
Since when have you been anything other than eccentric?
When we're delivering so much, and when we have such a vast mandate, and...
You do not have a vast mandate, okay? Have you seen the by-election results?
When we're actually only a handful of points behind in the polls.
Dude, you're more than a handful of points behind in the polls. Exactly. I mean, you know, if this was Doom, you'd be like the guy that looks really beaten up and bloody just before he dies, and you'd be desperately typing IDDQD and IDDKFA into the cheat buttons. But no, don't worry, you can't cheat reality, although you have tried.
Even in mid-term, after quite a few months of pretty relentless sledging, and when...
Sledging?
The economic scene is so difficult domestically and internationally.
I don't know, maybe you could try taxing the rich. It's not like they've got, you know, they're not poor guys, they're rich.
And I regret not
everything. That's a good start.
To have been successful in those arguments, and of course it's painful and not to be able to see through so many ideas and projects myself.
You can now concentrate on your side projects. Unlike most prime ministers that go to spend more time with their family, Boris Johnson may very well leave politics to go and spend more time with other people's families, or more correctly, other people's wives, because there are rumours, very convincing rumours, that a man who has at least 7 children by at least 3 women, allegedly, can't keep his dick in his pants.
But as we've seen at Westminster, the herd instinct is powerful when the herd...
Oh, so the herd. So, okay, so everyone that doesn't agree with Boris Johnson is now a sheep. Well, of course, Boris Johnson is the worst shepherd ever. He would wander off, get distracted by a pretty girl, and then let his flock get eaten by the wolf. That is the kind of shepherd that he is.
Herd moves, it moves. And, my friends, in politics, no one is remotely indispensable.
Oh my God, I wish you'd realised that years ago.
Our brilliant and Darwinian system will produce another leader equally committed to taking this country forward through tough times, not just helping families to get through it.
Which you haven't done, by the way, because we're facing a cost of living crisis.
But changing and improving the way we do things, cutting burdens on businesses and families and...
Red tape, the kind of red tape that allows you to put flammable cladding onto thousands of tower blocks and be literal death traps for millions of people. Bonfire of the inanities.
Yes, cutting taxes.
Mate, taxes. Cutting taxes is not where we should be right now, okay? Changing the tax so that it's fairer. Britain has the most arcane tax laws in the world. The theory is that one of the reasons why they were so keen for us to leave the EU was because of the European Union change to tax laws, which was due to take place in 2020, that was going to start to eliminate money laundering and offshore tax havens. And of course, if you're a billionaire businessman who has sold out your country in order to fill the United Kingdom full of basically boxes, stealing houses off people and turning them into money boxes, which are investments full of money. The UK tax laws are incredibly lax, and the UK has obviously decided to leave the EU, in my opinion, to make sure that it is propped up by foreign money that avoids the moral tax obligation. And of course, anybody that says, "Oh no, it's completely legal," you have to remember there are two laws in the world. There's the moral law of what is right, and there is the legal law of what is allowed, and there is often a gap between the two.
Because that is the way to generate the growth and the income.
Really? Okay. So if you want to think about generating growth and income, perhaps what you need to do is to have a look at a redistribution of wealth. And by that, what I mean is transferring tax into economies. I would love for there to be a universal basic income in the UK, by the way, because remember, the people that will receive the universal basic income, if you're somebody that hasn't got a huge amount of money, you're not hoarding that money in offshore tax havens. You're spending it in the shops. So the easiest way to keep the economy going is to make sure that more people that don't have very much money have more money. Taxation is not necessarily the answer here. Maybe taxing the super rich is the way to go about it, and then redistributing the wealth so that the people that don't have very much money have more money. Austerity is murder.
We need to pay for great public services.
Of course we do. And this government have been responsible for catastrophic and evil cuts to huge parts of the public sector, trying to see things like social services, public transport, the utilities situations as being kind of like going, well, no, private sector, let the private sector sort it all out, because the private sector allows people to make profit out of it. And if you're making profit out of it, you're extracting value, and you're not redistributing that or putting that value back into where it belongs, which is the people that do the work. Fair day's work for a fair day's pay is hardly a controversial situation.
And to that new leader, I say, whoever he or she may be, I say I will give you as much support as I can. And to you, the British public,
That's me.
I know that there will be many people who are relieved, and perhaps quite a few who will also be disappointed.
Oh no, I'm not disappointed. I'm only disappointed that you were ever Prime Minister. I cannot believe that you were ever Prime Minister, that anybody looked at you and went, that's the man for me. I genuinely can't get it. I absolutely can't. I don't understand how someone could look at Boris Johnson and go, he's easily the best person in the country. I guarantee you, of every place I've ever worked, everyone who's had a position leading a team, anyone that's been a director, anyone that's been a project manager, has been more capable, more competent, more focused, less flippant, and more truthy, more honest than Boris Johnson.
You to know how sad I am.
I don't give a shit about your feelings, mate. You didn't care about our feelings when you were having 20 parties and you were having karaoke and you were bringing suitcases of wine into number 10, and as you partied until 4:37 a.m. on the day that the Queen buried her husband and couldn't even be surrounded by the members of her family. You don't care about anyone apart from yourself. We're just little people to be dispensed with. Our role to you is only to be economic units of production, funding money into the tax system so you can then siphon it off to all of your mates and your pub landlords who have suddenly set up mask-making companies that, by the way, fail the medical standard. £4 billion of COVID-19 masks that were purchased by the NHS during the COVID-19 pandemic were judged to be unfit to meet the medical standard that's required. £37 billion of public money was stolen from our purses and transferred through a VIP lane to their mates, their mates' mates, the people that were their local pub landlords, and people in their WhatsApp group chats. It was disgraceful, and people should have gone. People should have been charged with fraud, prosecuted, and sent to jail for that. It is a kind of corrupt activity that you really only generally see in failed dictatorships.
To be giving up the best job in the world.
Clearly, Boris doesn't think this is the best job in the world.
But them's the breaks.
Oh my God, them's the breaks. How old are you, dude? Are you like 13? I mean, I know his response to things is like, ooh, girls, ooh, hello. Let me talk to you. You're a blonde. I'll go and talk to you. You've got legs. Right, but no, them's the breaks. How incredibly juvenile. You know, we've got a man who's manifestly, obviously unfit for the job. lacking in gravitas, lacking in focus, lacking in intellectual rigour, a man who, amongst other things, has called homosexuals tank top bum boys, has said to people that they are peekaninis with watermelon smiles. He's called people that wear, the hijab, he said letterboxed is what he described that. We're looking at a racist, sexist, homophobic bully of a man here. I am staggered that he ever got the job. I'm not conservative, you probably will have worked that out, but I would have been so embarrassed to have been a conservative and go, that man is in charge. I'm like, where's your selection process? If you work for a private company, you look at someone's CV, you look at their track record, you make a decision to interview, you go down, you ask their questions about competency, and you select out people that aren't the right fit for the job. And yet here, it's just populism. But what is the problem with populism? Populism never stays popular. And that is the thing. He has decided that he turned politics into a game show, and I am tired of it.
I want to thank Carrie and our children.
All my children, not just the ones you're willing to publicly recognise. Well,
And all members of my family.
How many families? Remember that you did leave your wife who had cancer to go out with a younger model.
Who have had to put up with so much for so long. I want to thank the peerless British Civil Service for all the help and support that you have given our...
Man, you called the civil service the blob. You can't criticise them for doing their job and then tell them they've done a great job of their job when it's time to go. Okay, the job of the civil service is to make sure the country still runs, despite you throwing hand grenades into them, ill thinking out policies and just making up policy on the fly and going, what's going to go well with the Daily Mail and the Telegraph?
Police, our emergency services.
The police that you cut by 20,000 people.
And of course, our fantastic NHS,
which you're trying to kill.
At a critical moment, helped to extend my own period in office.
God damn it. Fund the NHS. The NHS is not dying. The NHS is being starved. Standard approach for the NHS. Okay, so you demoralise, you defund, and you demonise. That's how it works. Now, the NHS is not struggling for any reason apart from the fact that it's being catastrophically underfunded by a skinflint government.
As well as our armed services and our agencies.
Don't forget to lick the flag, and don't forget to mention the security agencies, the same ones that made an announcement today about security being compromised. The same security agencies that you gave the slip to in 2018 so you could go and have a meeting with a former KGB agent who you then made a member of the House of Lords.
That are so admired around the world.
But not by myself, because I don't listen to them.
And our indefatigable Conservative Party members and supporters.
Who are all tired of your bullshit.
Whose selfless campaigning makes our democracy possible.
Your democracy, not ours, because remember, I voted for Ed Miliband. I got chaos.
I want to thank the wonderful staff here at Checkers, here at number 10.
And the cleaners that died of COVID.
Of course, at Checkers, and our fantastic prop force detectives, the one group, by the way, who never leak.
Ooh, bitchy, bitchy, bitchy. The one group that never leaks. Well, let me remind you, Boris, is that you're not above leaking things yourself.
Above all, I want to thank you, the British public, for the immense privilege that you have given me.
I didn't give you this privilege, mate. Nobody with the right mind would have given you this privilege. But carry on.
I want you to know that from now on until the new Prime Minister is in place, your interests will be served and the government of the country will be carried on.
Okay, so we've had about 45 ministerial resignations, which means we have no ministerial level representation in a number of the government departments, which means that the government cannot function. Everybody that's been offered the job has turned it down. He's now appointing, Bob number 2. This is kind of like the Star Wars theory of promoting people, where you kill the guy and then the guy who's standing next to him at the time you kill the guy gets the job. So I'd like to introduce you to, Grand Sheriff Bob, formerly the cook, who's in charge of everything.
Being Prime Minister is an education in itself.
Mate, you thought you knew everything. Why would you be Prime Minister?
I've travelled to every part of the United Kingdom.
But you've never been to me.
And in addition to the beauty of our natural world, I've found so many people possessed of such boundless British originality and so willing to tackle old problems in new ways.
By installing old guys with old ways of working that have come from Eton, that have never known what it's like to be anything other than incredibly fucking rich.
That I know that even if things can sometimes seem dark now,
It's been
our
very
future
dark.
together is golden.
Sorry, mate, it's not a future together. We're getting a divorce. You are welcome to Dumpsville. Population 1.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
And with that, the clown has left the circus. I have to be honest, I hated Boris Johnson. I thought he was the most incompetent, incapable, venal, corrupt, lying, philandering, untrustworthy, incapable Prime Minister. In fact, it's been an embarrassment to be British whilst Boris Johnson has been Prime Minister. It has cost our country's international reputation. It's cost our country's international trading reputation. It's cost us billions of pounds. Nobody trusts Britain anymore. Nobody trusts a British person to have intellectual rigour or to be honest and trustworthy when you're dealing with them on an international basis, because we have been led by liars. We've been led by philanderers. We've been led by a cabinet that has been manifestly incapable. As Keir Starmer said, the charge of the lightweight brigade. People have voted for a clown, they've got a circus. They've voted for a game show host. We have been living in a game show ever since, and nobody ever wins apart from the people that are already rich. It has been a disgraceful 2 years. With Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. I can't see how he can possibly survive until autumn. He's a dead man walking. The nation and the Conservative Party have very, very clearly indicated to Boris that it is game over. It is time to go. And by the way, his resignation means that his period as Prime Minister has been the shortest Conservative Prime Minister period of office since 1963. Shorter than Theresa May, shorter than David Cameron. And of course, on the day that he came into power, he was already the worst Prime Minister that Britain had ever had. I have despised his callous, cruel, unthinking, incompetent approach to absolutely everything. Since the moment he first appeared on British television about 20 years ago, when I looked at this gurning buffoon that clearly was only in it for the power and for the girls, who somehow, defying all comprehension and rationality, was elevated and promoted far, far beyond his incompetence to a position of absolute power, for which he wanted to be absolutely unaccountable. This is the end of a dark period of British history, a period that we will look back in many years' time as everything starts to come out, and we will look at him and we will see him as a monster, an affable fascist who tried to drag Britain into a place where humans don't have rights, where the laws don't matter, where the rules can be broken by the rich and not by the poor, where there is one rule for us and one rule for them, and the rule for them is very, very light. This has been a disgraceful period of British history, and I am really, really glad that it is over. Hopefully, you will now understand why I very rarely want to do next Notcast, Newscast, reaction videos about politics. It's depressing and it's emotive, and I don't like doing them. I'd much rather think about the joy that music brings me. Hopefully this will be the beginning of the end for the experiment that has been conducted on the British public over the past 12 years. The balance of history is a pendulum. It swings one way, it swings another way. We have started to see it swinging back. I don't know what's in the future, but at least we have got rid of the cancer, and hopefully therefore also all the people who have supported and enabled Boris Johnson's cancerous approach and infection of the rest of British politics. I long for the days when politicians resign when they screw up, for accountability to go back to office, for honesty and integrity to come back. We need to be led by the best of us, and for the past 2 and a bit years, Britain has been led by the very, very worst of us indeed. There is a wonderful word, a Kazakhstocracy, which is where a country is led by the very worst humans that are available. Britain has been a Kazakhstocracy for at least the past 2.5 to 5 years, and I hope to God this is the beginning of the end of that dreadful period. Anyway, take care of yourselves and each other. Like and subscribe. Most other Notcasts, not about politics. And my first reaction video. I swore I'd never do a reaction video, but that was worth reacting to. Stay beautiful and see you soon. Don't forget to subscribe. etc., etc. I promise to wear less sweary t-shirts in future episodes. Bye.